and good morning on this lovely Friday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. We are here at Profiles and Perspectives, and I'm your host, Darswell Rogers. And it's really my pleasure to be here. I hear a reverb. Is that coming from me? I'm not sure if I'm causing that. That's my hand speaker. Okay, I'm all good. Okay, so listen, I'm in studio today. Certainly, if anyone has got suggestions in terms of who they'd like to be profiled, I'd love to do that. Today is a perspectives conversation. Okay, we're going to talk perspectives, and I'm going to go back on a theme that I have had many times, but I'm going to significantly broaden it because the core of the discussion today is about artificial intelligence. I have shared since easily 2016, 2017, that the pace of change in the world is accelerating, and that that pace is going to completely redefine the way we think about the way the world works. And in the last 6 months, maybe even being less than that, there was an artificial intelligence capability called ChatGPT. ChatGPT that was introduced to the marketplace that anyone can go and download and use it, okay? And it is an artificial intelligence that literally can think faster and better and more effectively in certain ways than a human being can. And when I really was struck with the power of ChatGPT was I happened to be listening to Erykah Badu is an artist that I really happen to like, and I'd call her avant-garde. I'd call her new age. You know, she's really kind of edgy. She's cool. She's just different. And on MSNBC, there's a guy by the name of Ari Melbourne, who's one of the evening hosts. And this guy, I think he's a Jewish guy. He is totally into hip hop and new age black music. Okay, he's just he quotes rap lyrics like almost every evening. He did an entire show strictly on 50 Cent, because for those of you who may not know, 50 Cent's like in about 20 different businesses. He's not the guy that saying PIMP. I mean, he's way more than that today. But he had a conversation with Erykah Badu, and he went to ChatGPT, and he said, I want you to describe Erykah Badu for me. So he asked the bot to say, describe her for me. And then he interviewed her, and he said, this is what the bot said about you. And she said, it's 10 out of 10. She says, that bot nailed me. That's exactly who I am. And so I want to read for you what this bot, he just went and asked her, hey, describe Erykah Badu for me. And this is what ChatGPT said about her. He said, Erykah Badu's work is rooted in Afrocentric and Black feminist traditions, and her music critiques societal norms and constructs. She embraces her cultural heritage and celebrates Blackness, but also acknowledges the complexities of Black identity. Badu incorporates elements of spirituality and mysticism into her music, drawn on a range of religious and philosophical traditions to explore the nature of existence and consciousness. In this way, her music can be seen as a form of resistance against dominant cultural narratives and a celebration of alternative ways of being. That's what the bot said. That's what the artificial intelligence said about Erykah Badu. Now, you can go to Ari Melbourne. He does this longer interview with her. You can find it on YouTube. And she's like, she said, on a scale of 1 out of 10, to what extent is that you? And she said, that's a 10. And all he did was ask it that simple question, and this is what he came back with, like this. It wasn't like it had to sit there and do some long analysis or research or any of that stuff. It just delivered. Now, what does this mean for society? What does this mean for all of us? Some of it is really, really good and fascinating. Some of it can be incredibly challenging. For those of us in the community of faith, pastors, stop and say to yourself, okay, this is the theme I want for this Sunday's sermon. I can go to ChatGPT and I can say, look, I would like for you to do a sermon, write me a sermon, and you can say in the style of, if you, somebody that they're familiar with that's on the internet. So you can say in the style of, in the style of T.D. Jakes, on the topic of the day of Pentecost. And it will crank back in the style of T.D. Jakes with his language usage, a sermon with that topic. They had the bot do, I think it was Snoop Dogg. They says, we want you to create a rap in the style of Snoop. And the bot just went out and came back, said, how long do you want it to be? And came back with, just rocked it, okay? You can go to the bot today and you can say, listen, I'm currently building a business, and I'll think about one of my clients. I got a client, it's a law firm. Says, look, we want to expand our marketing, and this is the niche we want to be in. This is our target market, and we want to do it in this geographic territory. And these are the key things that you should know that we want to have included. Please write me some marketing copy. Write me some marketing copy. What are the key words that I should put in that copy, and the like. You are a student in school, and you have to write a scholarly referenced paper on the future of electrification. I just making something up. It says got to be 2,000 words, got to be this, got to be that, got to be the other. Has to be completely original. So you can't plagiarize. You can't pull somebody else's words into that document and claim that they're mine, right? Boom. It just can do it. Okay? So, from a very positive point of view, think about how cool it is to have this capability to help you think through the challenges that you currently have going on in your life. The flip side of that is there are people who currently have jobs doing certain things, and you can ask the question, well, why should I pay somebody to do this research for me if this bot will do it for me? It doesn't complain. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't ask you for money. It doesn't give me any lip. It just cranks out these insights, right? It just cranks out points of view and perspectives. Now, there are clear limitations to what an AI can do. And let me just point out that the information that's in particular in ChatGPT only goes to the year 2021. So anything that happened last year or anything that's happening right now, it's not in its database. But the information that exists in the world, I've said this before, the amount of information in the world is doubling every 12 hours based upon estimates by IBM. The information in the world is doubling every 12 hours. And it's mostly sitting on the internet. It's mostly sitting on the internet. And so anything that was known in the year 2021 or before, at least in concept, the AI can pull it and incorporate it into anything that you ask it to do. Anything that you ask it to do. So we've got all these unique challenges in the world, and I know as humans we get pretty arrogant about what it is that we think we know and what we think we can do and what this, that, the other, and we're driven by fear and we're driven by ego in so many ways. It's time to finally say to yourself as an individual and for your organizations, okay, this notion that I can continue to do the status quo, that I can continue to do yesterday and presume that it's going to be effective tomorrow, you have to break that thinking. And it's going to scare you and it's going to scare people that are around you, but we've got to come to grips with these realities. And now that's the fear side of it. The other side of it is to say, look, we'll talk about a community that has had tremendous disadvantages, that has experienced, institutional racism. You could say, hey, listen, let's look at the current state of affairs for a specific group of people and say, if we wanted to go, if what were the strategies or what were the tactics or what were the things that you should recommend that we do if currently we are in currently a low wealth group of people, but over the next 5, 10, 15, 30 years, we want to go from here and we want to go to there. Wouldn't it make some sense to at least go to the bot and say, what strategies would you recommend? Recognizing that there's certain limitations. But you see, if I were to say to you, here are the things that I believe that we should do, and that if we were to do these, we could literally leapfrog it's not a linear path. You don't have to go in a linear way. You can re-envision things and go from where you are today and take big chunks and big leaps by a shift in your approach or your shift in your thinking. So I just thought this up as we've been talking, but I'm literally now inclined to say I got to go to ChatGPT and begin to think about this. How do we make these sorts of transitions? What should the strategies be? Now, what's notable about this is that I said that it has some limitations. Okay, so I think that there's this legitimate notion of being concerned, and there's a legitimate excitement about what the potential is. But AI has some very clear limitations, and again, this is something that I've shared before. Last year, this time, I was in a course at MIT on neuroscience, because how the mind works and how people work. So I'm a student of the human condition. That's how if you ask me, who are you, what do you do? I'm a student of why people behave and do what they do, because we are imposing, we have self-imposed restrictions on our capacity, that all is necessary is to decide that we're going to do it differently. It will be stressful. It will not be easy, but we can decide that we want to do something different. Now, the nature of AI is that it's based upon logic. Logic is the core foundation of how it operates. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have intuition, right? And so there are, from a neuroscience point of view, there's basically 6 fundamental or foundational ways of thinking, logic being one of them. And logic tends to see the world very linearly. It tends to think that you're going to go from step A, B, C, D, E, right? Logical thinking is literally going to be the domain of the AI. There is no value that we're going to find in the marketplace for a human being to be a very logical thinker, because the AI can do it faster than you can do it. So we have to hone our skills and capabilities in the other ways of thinking. So intuition is another way of thinking. where you are drawing upon your senses to arrive at conclusions. Motivation is another way of thinking. What motivates you? What drives you? Where is it within you or within a group of people that brings about a level of thinking and creativity that is radically or significantly different than the logic of, well, 1 + 1 is 2. That's not, we're talking about thinking in a completely different way. Creativity. How do you think from the point of view of creativity? That's another way of thinking that is distinctly different. Then there's another one called brain-body connection. And so this is where you work with not just your mental capabilities, but your gut. I've talked about in the past this dynamic around the fact that your ethics reside in your heart, that your intellect and your reasoning derives in your brain, and that gut, that notion of having the resiliency and the determination resides in your stomach or in your gut. And that the notion is that you have three brains, and when you can get alignment between those three brains in terms of your heart being your ethics, your intellect, and your resiliency, that you can do special things, and you know that you can stick with something that you make a commitment to. These are the ways of thinking dynamically that are going to redefine the way the world works. So so the key and the opportunity is to draw upon what the AI brings you, and then integrate into that intuition, creativity, emotion, motivation, and brain-body connection processes to arrive at a completely different set of conclusions than you would typically do. This is where the world is going. This is the foundation for any group of people, any individual or group of people who says, I want to change the way the world works, the way I see the world. I want to redefine what is possible. This is the equation. So I want everybody to be clear. If you've got a smartphone, you can go into your app store. I'm an Apple guy. And you can quite literally download ChatGPT onto your phone to begin to play with it. And that's what I would ask you to do. We're going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I'm going to kind of just go deeper into this, talk more about how this impacts organizations. You're listening to Profiles and Perspectives with Darswell Rogers. You know that story about the young man, for those who are listening to me on the radio, about this young man that back when I was in college was so intent on being an athlete and just could not even think about doing anything other than being an athlete until I insisted that there was no athletic future. There was no football, no basketball, no baseball, until I just really insisted that he had to come up with something else to do in his life. Then he finally said, okay, I guess I'll be a writer. And that ability to open his mind, to broaden his perspective, right? So today's conversation, we're talking about artificial intelligence and the impact of artificial intelligence on the world. I've been saying since 2016, 2017, that the world is transforming, and it's transforming at a pace that is accelerating, and that the opportunities to capitalize are profound if we will simply open our eyes and look more broadly about what is out there. And yes, considering something new and different is fearful, creates a lot of fear in a lot of people. As a matter of fact, 80+% of the people don't like change. I mean, that's just statistically the facts. But once you get folks to understand that doing nothing is a higher risk than doing something, you can get a tremendous amount of buy-in. And so I spend a large part of my consulting activity helping people to re-envision what it is that the future holds for them, whereby we can break the notion that you can stay static or that you can incrementalize your way through things, that you need to think in different and radical ways, okay? And that word radical, probably I need to use a different word other than radical to get buy-in, but in different ways. There's a couple of things, and let me take a step back because I kind of want to frame this for anybody who wasn't listening a little earlier. There's an artificial intelligence, and there's a number of them out there, but the most famous one right now is called ChatGPT. You can literally download it onto your phone and use it. It has the ability to take information and give it back to you in seconds. Information and insights that are profound. There's an interview that Ari Melbourne, and I just posted it on my Facebook page. Ari Melbourne did an interview with Erykah Badu several months back. And he simply went to the artificial intelligence app and said to it, I want you to basically go into the internet and I want you to describe Erykah Badu for me. And so the bot went out and it came back with a description of Erykah Badu, which he then read to her, and she said it was 10 out of 10. That's exactly who she is, okay? And this is what the bot said. The bot said that Erykah Badu's work is rooted in Afrocentric and Black feminist traditions, and her music critiques societal norms and constructs. She embraces her cultural heritage and celebrates Blackness, but also acknowledging the complexities of Black identity. Badu incorporates elements of spirituality and mysticism into her music, drawn on a range of religious and philosophical traditions to explore the nature of existence and consciousness. In this way, her music can be seen as a form of resistance against dominant cultural narratives and a celebration of alternative ways of being. This was a request that was made, and this is what was given back virtually simultaneously. And when he read it to Erykah Badu, she's like, that's 10 out of 10 who I am. And so the power of artificial intelligence, it's time for us to use it in our daily lives. And today, you can go, you can download the app, you can begin to ask it all sorts of questions and see what sort of feedback you get. Apply it to ask it about a challenge you may be having in your life. Ask it about financial strategies. Ask it about organizational ideas. Play with it. Come to understand what it can do for you. Come to understand where the challenges are in terms of what it can do. Because there's a couple of things that the World Economic Forum does an analysis, and I'm going to backtrack here for a second. The World Economic Forum is when I say that they say that the pace of change is accelerating, and that there's going to be more change in the next 20 years than there's been in human history. Okay, there's going to be more change in the next 20 years than there's been in human history. There's going to be more change in the next 20 years than there's been in human history. The amount of knowledge in the world is doubling every 12 hours. Every 12 hours. Okay? So I'll go back to, I said, I've been talking about this since 2016, 2017. My colleagues and I were doing some work with the big three automakers. And we were talking to them. We were working with their product development folks. And we're talking about, we're thinking autonomous vehicles, we're thinking electrification, and they're still thinking that the combustion engine and the drivetrain are going to be the core foundation of the automotive industry. They just don't see this whole electrification, electric vehicle thing taking off whereby they have to make some sort of radical shift in their business. Now, you know and I know that that's not the case. And if you go on my Facebook page, if you tab down a ways on my Facebook page, I have there's an image that I posted there, a Facebook, not an image, a video that I posted on my Facebook page where I show the market value of companies in the automotive industry. And it probably looks at the last 20 years. And so if you go back 20 years ago, like Toyota was the most valuable company, but it kind of accelerates through this 20-year period, and you'll see the value of these, the Fords and the General Motors and the Mercedes-Benz and the Hondas and the Nissans, and they're saying their values are moving and moving and moving. And then somewhere around, 2018, you see Tesla kind of pop onto the scene. And then from like 2018 to 2021, Tesla went from being like a little bitty company to the most valuable automotive company in the world by a factor of 2 or 3. Tesla is worth, I'm making this number up, but I'm going to do it low. Tesla is worth at least 3 times Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler combined. And I was being conservative. It's actually more than that. Tesla's worth more than 3 times those companies. And in 2016, the big 3 automotive companies didn't even take them seriously. So what does all this mean? I know I'm dropping a lot of kind of information here. The core point that I'm attempting to make, and I have made this multiple times, is that our community has the opportunity to redefine itself in profound ways. This idea of linear progression, that we're here and then we've got to struggle to get here and then we've got to struggle to get here and then we're going to, that is only because we're locked into a legacy mindset, right? The Les Brown statement, opportunity does not knock on every door. Opportunity stands by quietly waiting for you to recognize it. And I am hopefully kind of shaking you, slapping you awake, doing something that says, can we please at least consider the fact, have conversations about the fact that the status quo is not, it's a false reality, and that reality can be transformed by a decision to think differently. A decision to think differently. Now, from an organizational point of view, I'm a big fan of something called creating a team of leaders. I probably haven't talked about this a whole lot with on the radio, but from an organizational point of view, we tend to have this old hierarchical mindset that the people at the top are smarter than the people at the bottom. That the people at the top, because they've got all this knowledge and all this information, that they know better, that therefore that they should be the person that makes the decision. That is wrong. That is, you are kidding yourself. Because if the pace of change, if knowledge is doubling every 12 hours, there's zero chance that a small group of people at the top know what the heck is going on. You need to have everybody in your organizations not having some understanding of where the organization is going, why it's wanting to get there, and have a stake in whether or not it succeeds or not, so that they can begin to say, hey, I'm seeing trends, I'm seeing circumstances, I'm seeing situations, I'm seeing opportunities, I'm seeing risks. And by the way, why we need to be incorporating some of these things into what it is that we do every day. The community of faith, right? So the pandemic hits, some folks aren't on the internet and they don't survive because they can't pivot to an online reality. Post-pandemic, hey, a lot of folks say, you know what, I kind of like having church from home and not having to come back into the church on a regular basis. The notion of virtual reality is just on the doorstep, where quite frankly, we'll be wearing these masks and I can feel like I'm sitting next to you in church, but I haven't. Then none of us have left our homes, and I can choose to attend through VR. I can choose to attend church in another part of the world and feel like I'm actually experiencing the service. This is where we're going. So this need for an expansive perspective is critical. So this notion of dynamic thinking, I told you that AI is basically driven around logic. And there's at least 5 other ways of thinking. You can think through your motivations, you can think in terms of creativity, you can think in terms of your emotions, you can think in terms of intuition, you can think in terms of this brain-body connection, this dynamic that plays out between all your senses and your mind. And so we want to teach people how to incorporate 6 ways of thinking instead of 1 way of thinking. We then want to give people a shared sense of purpose and a shared vision and a shared mission that everybody gets and understands. We want to go through this notion of having greater emotional intelligence. You've got to know yourself. You've got to know others. We can't be afraid of people realizing what our deficiencies are. We've got to appreciate the fact that ego is guaranteed to get in the way of success. And fear is guaranteed to get in the way of success. And then ultimately, we've got to recognize that intellectual diversity is a positive, that people with differing perspectives, you don't want everybody to see the world the same way. You need the person who's the naysayer, notwithstanding everything I've just said, you need somebody who's going to say, I know there's all that other stuff you said sounds real cool and interesting, Darswell, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater now, because we got something here that's good. I'm not saying you throw it away. I'm saying you've got to open up your mind and your conversations and your perspectives, and you've got to become comfortable being uncomfortable. You have got to become comfortable being uncomfortable. The world is not standing still. And if ChatGPT hasn't, in this short period of time we've had today, hasn't helped to solidify this, let me share a couple of other just little pieces of perspective here. The expectations are that artificial intelligence will be your pharmacist in the future. There won't be a reason to have a human being in that job. Artificial intelligence will, they believe there'll be an AI sitting on the boards of public companies. So yes, there will be humans, but they will also put an AI on the board of companies because they can just crank out insights and knowledge like this. You raised the question. I wonder, by the time you can say, think of it, if anybody's a Star Trek fan, it's like having Commander Data, right? It's like having freaking Commander Data there. They're calculating at speeds that the rest of us can't. So why wait for somebody to go and do an investigation and come back, next week's meeting when you've got the AI who can just, what do you recommend that we do? You've heard everything we've said. What's your point of view and your perspective? Okay? If you are a pastor, hey, you don't have to write your sermons from scratch. You don't have to write them from scratch. You just can enhance what the AI kind of put down there. And if you give it, I argue, but I'm not speaking of, you can give it all your old sermons and say, okay, take what I've done, plus here's my new ideas, and here's the interpretive Bibles I use, and here, pull together these things. If you are having to make, you're going to make an argument before the Supreme Court, and you've got to pull together all the precedents and all the arguments, you just ask the AI to do it for you. And then you have to then use what humans bring, our intuition, our emotions, our creativity, then you bring that to the table. That's what you bring to the table. That's the value that we bring. And as black folks, we're creative as anybody. But if we're going to sit and say, oh, no, that's not the way we do it. That's not the way. We can't do, we don't do, we can't do that. No. If that voice, and you need that person, don't get me wrong, you can't shut that down. That's a legitimate component part of the conversation, but it can't be what drives the future. It can't be what drives the future. And as our culture, we are we're not letting anybody mistreat us. I remember any notion of a transgression, any notion. I remember, man, somebody come up with a good idea, and it don't. There's a thing that I like to do with clients is I'll put the word past on one wall, and then I'll put the word future on the wall across from it. And then I'll have everybody stand staring at the word past. And then I'll tell them to walk backwards so that they're still staring at the word past, but they're walking toward the word that says future, but they're staring at the past. They're staring at the past, and they're heading into the future. And I'll be very candid, that's what so many people do. Their memory, their thoughts, they're worried about what had happened. And to the extent they are thinking about the future, they're thinking about how it's going to be a problem based upon something that happened in the past.
That's why it's in the past.
You've got to come up with ways. This is why meditation is also powerful. This is why mindfulness, living in the present, is so important. And so I've been running my mouth, okay? I have been running my mouth. I hope that I have made an impact this morning. I just, the level of frustration that I feel sometimes around the talent that we have that we cannot unlock. I was talking with a good friend of mine who's also a coach. She's been on my show in the past, Shelley Wizen, and we're talking about unleashing energy from people. And we were also talking about how when you unleash energy, you become incredibly energized. And we said, well, energy and energize. So we took the two words and put them into one. So energy, I forgot what we call it. I have to share that another time. But we've got to rethink how we do these things. And so as I come to the end of my hour, in studio, it's good to be here. Tammy's like, oh, he's actually here, versus somewhere else. I absolutely would love to get your comments about what I've talked today. I'd love to engage organizations in terms of how do we make this transformation. I'm reflective of the fact that in the midst of all I've got going on, I'm in seminary, and that's been an amazing experience for me. I'm actually taking the bishop has put me in a writing class at Oxford for the summer. So I know how to write, but I don't know how to scholarly write, where you have to cite all the references. And I was like, I'm more worried about being accused of plagiarism than I am about what the content is. But with all of that said, everybody have an outstanding weekend. We will see you next week. You're listening to Profiles and Perspectives with Darzul Rogers.